Welcome to season 2 of Trailblazing Women, Exceptional Stories of Female Leaders. In this first episode, we sit down with Arlan Hamilton, the trailblazing founder of Backstage Capital. Arlan shares her trailblazing story of breaking into the world of venture capital. Driven by the lack of diversity that she saw in the industry, she was determined to make change and set out to raise $1 million for underrepresented founders. Arlan shares the power of delusional confidence and the importance of creating your own reality. This episode is packed with valuable insight for aspiring entrepreneurs. Tune in as we talk about her 2 best-selling books, It's About Damn Time and Your First Million, which both are packed with guidance and inspiration for anyone on their entrepreneur journey. We get a sneak peek in her highly anticipated first live event, First Million, and find how Arlan is finding inner peace and balance in the midst of her groundbreaking work. Now let's get into this episode. This is Girl Take Note, a podcast for women who are looking to turn their dreams into reality. And welcome to Girl Take Note. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for being on this show. I really do appreciate it. I just want to jump things off into your story. Your story is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And I want us to go back a little bit and kind of talk about what made you start Backstage Capital with being at a stage in your life where, one, you were facing a lot of adversity, homelessness. What was like the driving factor behind it?
Yeah, I originally wanted to start a company because I understood, okay, Twitter is a startup, and Airbnb, all these things that I've heard of, they're startups, and I use them, And so I had always felt like an entrepreneur my whole life. I just didn't know what to call it until I understood what startups were. So I originally wanted to start a company, and I did some research to start the company, and it said, okay, you probably got to raise money for that. So at the time, that's what I understood. So I started researching, how do you raise money for your company? And that's when I found out that 90% of all venture capital goes to white men in the United States. And they make up about 33% of the country. So I said, well, that's crazy. So that kind of stopped me, like if it was a movie, it would be like, that would be the pivotal moment of like, no, that doesn't make sense. So I said, well, I could probably raise $1 million because I know myself. I know that I put my mind to something. I'm going to try to, I'm really going to make it happen. But what if I raised $1 million to invest in other people who are like me? What would that look like? That could be transformative, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when things really started to take a turn. And I wrote my first book, It's About Damn Time, it came out in 2020, and that tells that story in depth.
That's so awesome. You went into a business, like I said, it's very male dominated. What are probably one of the biggest challenges you think you face starting in this industry, and how do you think you overcame that?
I think having a few things, I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm gay, I was poor, I was not networked. I didn't go to college, so I didn't even have that sort of network to pull from. I think all of that all at once, and going into an industry that was not purely, but mostly wealthy white men with college degrees who had incredible network. If nothing else, they had that. Some of them had more network than they had sense. You know what I'm saying? So more dollars and cents. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was facing that, and I still face that. Obviously, I still face that. But it's just been so wonderful to see how many Black investors have come into the industry.
Yes.
And also Black founders. So we definitely went on to help inspire thousands of founders to start companies or to join companies.
Yeah, I read that too, about the number of companies that you've been able to invest in that's underrepresented. How do you determine, when you're looking to bring in like a company, what are some of the determining factors that you see in that founder that makes you want to say, you know what, I think this company is something I really want to kind of help and get to their first million?
Yeah, well, at Backstage Capital, my venture fund, we invest in women, people of color, and LGBTQ plus founders. So I'm always looking for founders who have been historically underestimated. That's the first thing. Second thing is, there are so many. So it's not like that's all you need to get into the mix.
Yeah.
I'm looking for people who do a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And who are doing something profound. And there are a lot of people who I think are doing something very smart, which is they're learning. They're simply starting companies to learn, experience, and experiment. those companies are not as exciting to me because that's training wheels. And I think they're fantastic. We started an accelerator at one point in 4 cities because we like that. But I'm looking for companies that have found something. They call it product market fit. They found product market fit. So whatever you're offering in the market and it's fitting, people are buying, people are reacting, people are saying we need more of this. People are saying if this didn't exist, we would have a problem with that. That's product market fit. And that's what we're looking for. And then on top of that, I'm looking for someone who doesn't make excuses. They make money.
Yeah.
They don't, right? Like
That's what it's about, right?
It's a business. And we're investing other people's money and my own. So I'm a major LP, a major investor in Backstage. So I want to see my money do well. Just like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban invested $6 million in Backstage Capital. $6 million. He's a nice guy, but he wants his money back. He wants us to make a profit for him. And so that's what I have to think about every day. And so I'm looking for someone who can do a lot with a little, has a vision, is easy to work with. Life is too short for it to be combative, coachable, but has their own confidence in what they're doing. They don't have to be like strong and masculine and have all this energy or, be charming even. I want you to be confident in what you're doing, even if you're not confident in yourself.
Yeah. That brings me to something that I talked about with a lot of entrepreneurs on this show. A lot of them mentioned delusional confidence when it comes to starting their business. And I was going to ask you, was that the type of confidence you had to have in order to start Backstage Capital? Because I need all that to rub off on me every time I talk to someone, because I'm like, I need to start living in that delusional confidence.
I have said for years that I am absolutely delusional. You have to be delusional to be living out of a hotel room with your mom. You're in your 30s, she's in her 60s. You're going down to the front desk area on Tuesdays because they have free chili nights. And you're excited that morning when you wake up because you're going to eat that day.
Yeah.
And at the same time, being out there saying I'm raising $1 million fund and doing that.
And doing it.
You have to be delusional to think that you can invest in 100 companies by 2020 and 2015 when you're sleeping on the floor of an airport. You have to be delusional. I was delusional and I still am because I now have the next moonshot and the next goals because I had to create the reality that I wanted to see. I had to create the reality that I wanted to see. I had to place myself in an illusion, in a delusion. I had to place myself in a world that did not exist yet.
Yeah.
So 100% there's delusion. Now, I have worked with a couple of founders who were misleading, unethical, bad actors. And what they were doing was called lying. That's not
difference.
That's not a confident, delusional tactic that you use internally to get yourself to the mountaintop. That's just being a bad human, right? Or whatever you call that. Yeah. So I'm not saying you're delusional and you're trying to fake something. I'm saying you're delusional with yourself because everything that is built, everything on your desk, everything that you use to get around town, everything that we're using right now for this interview, at one point did not exist. And it was in someone's imagination. It didn't exist until someone imagined it and then built it. So you have to sit in a place, true leaders and more than leaders, but true visionaries have to sit in a place of delusion in order to create.
Yeah. I like that because it kept coming up in almost every conversation. And I was like, that's really a part of the process. And that's just really having that confidence and that faith in what you're doing.
Yes.
I really do believe that. Let's get into the book, Your First Million, which is like a hot topic on everybody's mind because we're all in this business trying to figure out how do we make $1 million? What inspired you to, one, write the book for your first million? And does it compare to your first book, or does it have some, or how does it differ from your first book?
My first book, It's About Damn Time, came out May of 2020. And it told the story of how I got here. Like, how do I go from sleeping on the floor of an airport to running a $30 million venture fund, investing in 200 companies. At that time, it hadn't been 200 yet, but investing in all these companies, having these investors and being on the cover of Fast Company and all the things. And it had a lot to do with like the anecdotes of like what makes me who I am.
Yeah.
And it also, I believe, just based on the feedback from thousands of people, it also inspired and gave people a confidence of their own that they could do anything. And I'm grateful for that. It gave an introduction to what venture capital is and how it works. I had an FAQ section that I think was very helpful to a lot of people, and it helped you see that you could create. So a lot of people have come to me and said, I read that book and I started something. I started a company, I started a brand, I started creating, I did something. When I was, because the book did so well, I was offered another book deal. And I had to make a decision. Am I going to go with what worked, which was this anecdotal, like humorous and inspiring, multiple times put in self-help sections of stores, which I don't mind, but I wanted it to be a business book. Or am I going to do something else? And I chose something else because I thought I have learned so much in the last decade from working with, studying, and interviewing hundreds of millionaires. I've learned how to, they call it collapsing time, right? I've learned how to do that and get to this status faster. Like, I took the long road, but I learned a lot of things along the way. So why don't I distill that down to a guidebook that'll help people make their first million? And their first, right? First of many, hopefully.
Yeah.
I thought, if I have this opportunity, because tomorrow is not promised, I'm going to do that. And it has the same voice. I mentioned the first book. I kind of take you back to the first book so you can go back and listen to it or read it if you haven't. In the second book, Your First Million, I do that. That was just released in January of 2024. It's my voice. It's me. It's the same co-writer. It's everything. But really, it was like, let's get down to it. Let's get you on the path to your first million.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's one of the things that most people want to get to. And I think in that startup process is where we got to have the confidence, one. And a lot of, like I said, the delusion, but a lot of us probably don't believe, like, man, can I really get to my first? I'm just trying to get to the first 1,000.
Yeah,
honestly.
That was me. I talk about 7 income streams.
Yes.
I had 0 income streams for most of my 30s, and most of my 20s, and half of my 30s. I had 0 income streams, or I had 1 income stream that was a trickle. So, but now I have 10, and so through the book itself, and then through my masterclass, which you can get 3 months of. I take you from 0, in the masterclass especially, I take you from 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000. So the way you get the free 3 months of the masterclass with no, contract or anything, you go to my LinkedIn for Arlan Hamilton. Go to my LinkedIn page. Look at the, join me, please. But look at the link in the profile, and that'll take you to it. All you do is sign up for my newsletter. You get 3 months of something that is out there in market for sale. And you can see for yourself. And if you've already made your first 50,000, or you are, with your product or whatever, you can just skip to that module, whatever module you're in, including 0.
Yeah. There's so many people out there that have such a quick way of getting, you can make your first 1,000 here, make your first 50 there. And I feel like, the book and the courses are kind of something that takes us on a real journey versus making people feel like, well, you're going to make it in 30 days. You know what I mean? It's a lot of those get rich quick things that a lot of us fall for simply out of desperation, because we're like, I need to make money now. But I feel like your book is actually like a roadmap. You know what I mean? Because we know when you launch something, it's a roadmap. It's just a process, but we know what the end can look like for us. Yeah,
my mom turned 75 recently, and we went to. She asked what she wanted, and she said she wanted to go to Vegas, and she wanted to stay in a penthouse suite, and she wanted to have gambling money, and we did that.
Yeah.
And my mom, when I was growing up, she would always go to some casino if she could and try to make money because she was so desperate for money.
Mm-hmm.
Like she would take $30 and try to make rent. And she was always so desperate and so sad when she didn't, because most times she didn't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, very, it's like almost an illness. It was an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
She said this time when she went, she said she had so much fun because she said it didn't matter if she won or lost. And she hadn't felt that in a long time.
Yeah.
And that, I never would have guessed that would have been the case. That, I've been relieved of addiction of alcohol after 15 years. Now I've been 6.5 years sober. What I mean by all of this is that I know what it's like to be on that side of it, where 30, give me $1 million in 30 days. 30, why not 30 seconds? Like, let's go.
Yes.
But I promise you, if you have the patience and you have the vision to understand that your current circumstances are temporary, and that you have the power to change them, not in a get-rich-quick scheme, not in an unsustainable or illegal or an unethical way, but you do have the power to change it. And if you really think about where were you 2 years ago, can you give yourself 2 years to do this? And guess what? What's really fun is that along the way to $1 million is 100,000.
Yes.
It's 150,000. It's 300,000. There's a lot on the way to that.
Yeah.
You can give yourself patience for 1 year, for 2 years, for 5 years. You can be in a position where everything else that has been in your life is in the rearview mirror.
I like that.
If you try to take the other route, you're going to constantly start over. You're going to try to do this quick thing and start over.
Yeah.
You won't get anywhere.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. It's that patience that you got to have in order to see yourself get there. In the book, you mentioned something that I've talked about before that I don't know if a lot of people still value as much, but you talk about mentorship.
Yes.
And community, which I think is so important. What are your thoughts around that? Because I try to tell people too that I know, like, I think having a mentor, like, I grew up in an era where we had mentors. We used to go work for free in certain places just to learn something and get a skill set. And I just feel like today with social media and everything being online so much, I don't know how valuable most people see that today. What are your thoughts on mentorship?
Yeah, I think it can be incredibly powerful. I know that I know that a lot of people come to me for mentorship, right?
Yeah. I know you get lots of requests.
I get so many requests, and I'm kind of surprised by it, because I'm like, you have to know that I can't do that for most of the people, right? But I understand. I get it. When I was broke, which is most of my life, but when I was in my early 30s and I was broke, and it was just sad, how broke we were. There was a moment where I realized nobody's coming to save me. Let me go ahead and create a mentorship in a box. So guess who my mentors were? Oprah, Will Smith, Richard Branson, Brad Feld, anybody whose book I could get my hands on was my mentor. And of course I would have loved to have called up Richie at Virgin and say, can you come over? But that wasn't the case. So I did that. And then this visual came to me of, when you're running a marathon, there will be people who you know and who you don't know who hold out cups of water and Gatorade, right, along the path. So I don't know if you've ever seen that. You're running along, there's just groups of people who volunteer to just hold out water for you. You take the cup and you throw it on the floor and you ground and you keep running. I had that visual back then. And I said, you know what? I may not have this person who is constantly, I have a standing weekly call with them, or they've taken me under their wing, or I'm going to their, shadowing them. But there are people who I talk to who just for that moment help me. They make a phone call, or they give me a word, or they answer a question. What if I looked at this as a marathon where each of those people were part of the bigger picture? And that was my mentorship as well. That is also a way to look at it, because that way you are being fed, you are being nurtured. It's just something that you're you have to be the person who leads that.
Yeah.
No one, not too many people are going to just come out of nowhere and say, let me go ahead and be your mentor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then one more thing I'll say is a hack to mentorship. And I think you would appreciate this a great deal.
Yeah.
Another hack I found probably in 2016 is I said, well, okay, I want to talk to all these people. I want to talk to all these different people.
Yeah.
How do I do that? So I started a podcast. And I said,
Yes.
okay, if there are these 10 people I want to talk to, let me ask all of them, but let me ask 30 other people too who are kind of like that. Some percentage is going to say yes. And what you do is you ask them the questions on the show. You might, at the beginning or at the end of the thing, when you're not recording, you might say, can I ask you one question? That's just for me. And you start collecting that information.
Yeah.
So that can be a podcast, which is very easy to spin up, very cheap to spin up these days.
Yeah.
For some people, like, you may do it a different way. Or you could have a blog, or you could have a series on Instagram where you go up to somebody or you interview somebody or go live with them. That is how you do it. And the big thing is, don't be upset when somebody says no, because most people don't say no. But just say, what about the 4 people who said yes?
Yeah.
Let me do my thing.
Yeah. And you were one of my yeses.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know what it is. You know what it is.
It's a process. You're right. You have to really put yourself out there, and you cannot, because you're going to face rejection. You're going to face people who just don't have time. And a lot of time I just look at it as people are busy. They have a lot going on in their lives, especially if they're very popular. So everyone can't say yes to it. And I have to be okay with that. And I have to appreciate the ones that do say yes.
Yes.
So yeah, I appreciate that 100%. Let me ask you this question, because I was wondering this, and I was going to ask you this question. Which one came first? Was it the book or the podcast? It's almost like the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Which one came first?
Podcast. I launched
the
the First Million podcast, and it was 4.5 years ago. I launched it in summer, like a July of a year, 2019, I think.
Yeah.
And I had 100 episodes before a book was ever even in the works.
That's so awesome. I was wondering that, because I'm like, did you just get the idea from the podcast? It's like, you know what? I'm gonna help people get on the road to their first million, because this is what it seems like. You know what? I also want to ask you, was entrepreneurship something you always saw yourself doing? Because a lot of times, a lot of people grow up with entrepreneurs in their family. Some just don't. Some look at those on the outside. But was it something you always saw yourself doing, or was it something you said you kind of got inspired to do?
No, I always did entrepreneurial things. Like since the 3rd grade, I had a candy store. I was a candy lady. So, and I was always an entrepreneur. My nephew Dallas, it reminds me so much of myself at that age. Like he's 13, I think. And he's just, he's making $50 at school a week, just doing
that's
his
right.
thing. It's not drugs, I make sure.
That's a business mind.
Yeah, I said, you're going to be a millionaire, if not more. You are, I have no doubt.
Yeah.
So I always had that. That was always my vibe. But at the same time, I grew up around people and I thought, okay, you're supposed to get a 9-to-5 job.
Yep.
You're supposed to get insurance. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to have a kid or 2. It was very like, I'm going to have these things that I want to do, but they're going to always be side things. They're always going to be like this, like my art, or that room in the house that I get to go and play. And I think as a younger person, I thought that that's just what it was. As I got older and found myself unemployable, every time I was great at getting jobs because I'm capable, but I would always buck the system.
Yeah.
I always had a problem with authority, and especially authority that was inept, which was most of the time. So I'm like, if you're supposed to be my boss and you're getting paid more than I am, and you're this inept, we have a problem. And so I would speak my mind, and that's not what they like there. So
they want someone to follow the rules.
I didn't last very long. Yeah. So I knew kind of going into my late 20s and 30s, I was like, I thought I was going to be on the road. I thought I was going to continue to be I was a tour production coordinator. And I thought I'll work my way up to tour manager for a major artist. That was the original goal. Yeah. And that still was within, like, you're working for Live Nation, or you're working for the artist, or so somebody's going to be my boss.
Yeah.
but I was going to at least get to spread my wings and not have a traditional kind of 9 to 5. That was going to be the play, kind of a mixture.
Yeah.
Then this happened where I found out about the statistic, and I was just like, we got to change this. We can't, there's work to be done.
Something
And
has to be
so
done.
I get to do a little bit of it all now.
Yeah, which is cool. I know we're winding down to the end of the show. You're 2 books in, your first
Yes.
million, it's about den time, which is absolutely amazing. I'm getting through it right now.
Thank you.
What's next for you? You've done so much. You've achieved a lot. What do you see next for you? And what do you think is going to get you excited to do next?
I'm really excited about Your First Million Live, the in-person event that I have. So it's April. I don't know when this comes out, but it's April 9th through the 11th in LA. And we have Issa Rae, we have Rich Paul, we have TLC performing, we have all kinds of stuff, all kinds of curriculum, firesides, beautiful venue. I think that this is my first big event, and we're expecting about 2,000 plus people. I think that if we can pull off this first event and it's meaningful for people and impactful and valuable, that's something I could do every year and curate that and all the opportunities that come up from that, for our founders at Backstage, people we've invested in, for the ecosystem, for people to make their first million.
Yeah. Yes.
Because all of that, I think, is like the next big chapter. And then I also can't help myself, and I'm an entrepreneur. I continue to create new companies.
Yeah.
And so I think I know you'll see at least two companies being announced this year that I'm a part of, and I think I'll continue to do that. I'm also very much so looking for that inner peace. I'm looking for calm. I've been running. First I was on the road just being poor, just out there grinding. And then for the last decade, I've just been building and growing Backstage and all that comes with that. And I'm looking for what it feels like to be calm, not stressed, and rested.
Yes.
I want to know what that feels like. And so I'm thinking about a way to find that this year.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I love that inner peace, that calmness, because you're just such a busy person always going, and we all need to have that to balance our life out.
Yeah.
Arlan, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. This was really awesome. I know it's going to be so beneficial to everyone that listens, and hopefully there might be a third book, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I plan on it.
Definitely. And so hopefully, during that time, we maybe have you come back on the show. But guys, listen, I am Shawnee Sanders. This is the Girl Take No Podcast, and we will talk to you next time.